We have them actually already, yeah. Thank you.
Test. Good level? Great. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, Star Wars was floundering, looking for a new direction, following the financially successful but divisive prequel trilogy.
Seeking to strike back from the overuse of CGI, Greedo shooting first, and Jar Jar Binks, Lucasfilm began work on an animated TV series that would fulfill the prophecy and bring balance to the Force.
The galaxy appeared to be lost until a new hope arrived. A man who returned us to a more civilized age and taught us that this is the way.
Great. A little bit of a break. And then Anthony?
And welcome to Canon Fodder. I am your host, Anthony.
And I'm Matt.
And I'm Ed.
And we are here live today, or not live, but kind of live here today at Alternate Endings in, I guess this is Matawan, New Jersey. Is this or is this considered Aberdeen?
Aberdeen.
It is Aberdeen. Okay.
Yep.
In Aberdeen, New Jersey. Excited. One of the beers that they have that they've actually brewed that we're going to get a chance to talk about is their Mando beer. But today, the episode that we bring you is Dave Filoni's Star Wars.
Yeah, super excited. So the man, obviously, we referenced in our opening scroll, quote unquote, I'm using air quotes right now, is obviously Dave Filoni. But I think you're waiting to take. Were you waiting to take our order? Okay, come on. Yeah. No, come on in. No, this is important.
Yeah, we can cut all
We can cut all of this.
the
so
beer,
it's no
the
big
beer
deal.
is there.
Yeah, no. Feel free to interrupt at any time.
Interrupt at any time.
No, you're good. Okay, what can I get for you guys?
I'm going to have a business is a boomin', please.
Make it two,
Okay.
please.
And I'll have the slow new.
Okay.
Yep.
You can see in it.
Anybody else say anything?
You guys have it?
Great.
I'm good.
You're good?
I'm good.
Do you guys want the food in right now, or do you want me to come back?
I come back
come
for that,
back.
yeah.
Yeah, come back
Awesome.
for that.
Thank
Yeah.
you. So anyway, yeah, so the guy I mentioned in our opening scroll was Mr. David Filoni, quite possibly the savior of the Star Wars universe. But before we get into all of that,
Arguably the
and
savior.
all of the actual canon fodder, we need to talk about where we are and why we're here. Like Anthony said, we're at Alternate Endings in Aberdeen, New Jersey. Quick little history about this place. This used to be a movie theater. So we've heard on earlier episodes of Ready, Set, Review, Anthony and I would always talk about the $7 SmackDown.
Yep.
Matinee, Saturday matinee for a
Yep.
movie that you want to see but didn't want to spend $11 on. You came to the Clearview Cinema here in Aberdeen. We grew up coming to this place. It was great. Unfortunately, they went out of business, but fortunately, it was bought by a group of people that turned it into what it is today, a phenomenal brewery with an incredible kitchen and one of the screens preserved behind me on the video I'm pointing to it. It is now a screening room with all these nice couches and chairs set up. So you come here, you drink beer, you eat awesome food, and you watch whatever they're screening, and it's been fantastic. So
They even have the old chairs.
Yes, the
from
old
the
chairs.
movie theater here.
Not only that, but we also have the show where like the movies were. So each one of those sconces right there are like basically we're over every theater.
yeah.
So we repurpose those. It's pretty awesome.
Oh, that's where you would
Right.
put the title for
That's
the
what-
movie.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
they were
Great.
repurposed to.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
awesome.
It's really,
So-
really cool. A very cool experience. If you're in the central New Jersey, Monmouth County area, we strongly suggest that you come in and check it out.
Yep. So joining us today from Alternate Endings is one of the brewers, Steve. Steve, welcome.
Hi everybody, how we doing today?
Well, it's funny because, we wanted to talk about the last beer that you guys released, the Mando beer, but just so happens, when I was here a few weeks ago, meeting Steve, talking about this podcast, Steve is a huge Star Wars fan. This is actually his Boba Fett helmet here, so I was like, hey man, come join the podcast because you'd be an awesome addition, not just to talk about Star Wars, but to talk about the Mando beer. So did you already do the
I
video?
just showed it off. Yeah.
Here we go.
Even if we weren't here, that would have been the beer for the episode.
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
Every episode, we always
Yeah.
pick a beer that ties into whatever cinematic universe we're talking about. So this is perfect. And so, Steve, tell us just a little bit about like what you do here and where the Mando beer came from.
All right, so I am the assistant brewer here at Alternate Ending Beer Company. The Mando beer actually came from one of our club members. We had a contest. all of our club members sign up, and this one gentleman, Greg, he was the one who was the winner. So we brought him in. We talked about, what they wanted to do, what was his thought process, and he's another Star Wars fan, and he wanted to do, a play on The Mandalorian, which is, everyone knows it's a spaghetti western type of show. So he's thought, what better character to use than Clint Eastwood as it, and do the, what if The Mandalorian was Clint Eastwood. And it's a Belgian IPA. Belgian IPAs are not known as much anymore. I feel like they're a little outdated, but I think this one actually we did this one really well. It's not your typical New England style IPA like everyone does right these days, but we kind of did a twist on a New England style IPA with a Belgian yeast strain.
Now, for our listeners that haven't been here, you were talking about how this is a combination of 2 movie references,
Yep.
and that is your theme for every beer.
Every beer.
And it's also on your can art. There's always like a door, and the door has one movie reference, typically a character, and then there's a shadow, and in the shadow it's somebody else. And so the idea for alt ending is like you guys make up an alternate ending for a movie that ties in different universes, which is perfect because on Canon Fodder we always talk about how seemingly disparate movies or TV shows can be connected. So this is like made specifically for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and just the absolute brilliance of mashing the kind of 2 genres together and having Mando and that Clint Eastwood's kind of feel it's just kind of like a perfect fit. Like I absolutely love it. I'm a huge fan of Clint Eastwood westerns, and you're absolutely right. Mandalorian is a space western, and it's great. And so. It's just a really great combination.
Can you share where who does the art for these cans? Because the can art is fantastic, and one of my favorite things about it is that every piece of can art is so similar. Like the brand is there, which I love when you see that because that's an alternate ending beer.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that you guys love the can art so much. I'm gonna butcher his name. I believe his name is John. I think I'm so bad with names. He does all of our can art. He's awesome. He's honestly we tell him our ideas and he makes a phenomenal art out of it.
Really great.
He really knocks it out of the park. Yeah.
And the color scheme's great too.
The color scheme, and then also just just looking at it, and you see it's there's stars in it, and it gives you that space feel. And it's pretty cool. Scott, the owner of AE, he comes up with a lot of the ideas and he passes them on, and then John just creates them, and we go from there. And we got some cool things coming out soon. So
now, do you name it after it's already brewed? So do you brew the batch and then name it, or do you we're gonna name this the Mando With No Name, and then we're gonna try and create a brew around that name?
No, we come up with a name first, and then from that name we'll brew around there, and we'll figure out what we want to do with it.
That's awesome. It's like reverse engineering.
And it's fun because there's with the movie industry, there's so much you can use, and there's so much you can take from it, and the mashups in your head are just infinity.
Yeah.
Just so much you can do. It's just amazing.
Yeah, and getting a chance to actually put that love and admiration for the films into the actual beer itself. There's a little bit of the sort of element of those movies, kind of in the beer. It's great.
Now, this is your first Star Wars beer.
Second.
It's second?
Yes.
So what was the first one?
So the first one was
How did we
called,
miss that?
spoiler, it's coming back.
Excellent.
It's called Walking Carpets. It's what if Princess Leia was Mary Poppins.
Oh, I do remember that one.
Okay.
There we go.
And just me as a Star Wars geek and now working in a brewery, I've always was so intrigued. It could have been the worst beer that I ever bought from a brewery, and I would buy it because it had something to do with Star Wars.
Yeah, 100%.
No matter what, it could be food, anything that says Star Wars, I'm buying it. So when I became an assistant brewer here, my mind was just going off. Like, oh my God, what kind of Star Wars beers can we make? What can we do? Da, da, da. And and we came up with the walking carpet idea, and then obviously the walking carpets get someone get this walking carpet out of my way.
Yep.
Worked for her bag and for Chewie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
absolutely.
I mean, I will say that we May the 4th we're going to be canning 2 Star Wars beers. I'm not going to reveal what we're going to do for it because I think it's going to be a lot of fun. The next one, it's going to be a big beer. It's going to be probably we're trying to do like a double IPA, a heavily oated IPA.
Nice.
Yeah.
But I can't wait for you guys to see what the name is going to be.
I can't wait. I mean, and the other reveal is that we're gonna be here with you guys podcasting,
Yes.
talking all about it, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. And I won't give away the big reveal of that episode because there's a couple, but just tune back in on May. It's like it's a fucking radio show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? May 4th.
I'm very excited for that one.
So May 4th, you have the beers dropping, and also, of course, that is when the Bad Batch comes out.
Yep.
So the Bad Batch, which is just a continuation of what we're talking about today, which is the Dave Filoni
So excited.
part of Star Wars. So
Yeah.
let's get a little bit into what that is. So from the opening scroll, proclaiming that the Star Wars films were actually, we were really starting with Episode 4. So Star Wars has really been at the forefront of defining what a cinematic universe is.
Absolutely.
Prequels, tie-in novels with competing continuities, tie-in video games, and even multiple director's cuts.
Yeah.
We're not talking about Snyder on this.
And
guy.
it's no
No,
Snyder
no Snyder.
talk on this episode. We're talking
No.
about quality content.
What, there's not a Lucas cut of any of the new films?
Yeah, he already came out with them in the late 90s.
The Star Wars universe could be broken up into multiple episodes, and I think we will eventually end up doing that. We could talk about the extended universe novels, which are now talked about as being part of the Legends. We could talk about the new multimedia prequel series, The High Republic, and of course the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Yeah, absolutely. And we should.
I actually heard there was a rumor that they were going to try to
Arch of the
remake
Bat.
that.
I heard
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna
Life Day. Well, they even mentioned Life Day.
They do.
Spoiler in Mando. So they're bringing
Yep.
Life Day into canon here.
And we should also mention, as we'll get into all of this, but for our listeners that might be more casual Star Wars fans, I'm sure there's a few of you sitting there going, who the hell is Dave Filoni and why is he not George Lucas? The answer is that Dave Filoni has a very specific creative segment of the Star Wars universe, and what those shows are and what we'll be talking about today is Mando, obviously Mandalorian on Disney+, Star Wars The Clone Wars, and Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah, and I view that as the best Star Wars trilogy. So
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
starts with Clone Wars, goes to Rebels, and goes to The Mandalorian.
Right.
And we'll talk about this, but it might not seem like it to most people who watched the first season of Mandalorian. It seemed like it was its own thing. But when I think about this whole thing, I think of it as one storyline.
Yeah.
So, like,
I think that's one of the real brilliant things about Dave Filoni is that it's very easy to do that, to see it as one coherent storyline.
Yeah.
I mean, the characters, even though they're acted by two different, kind of people when they are, the character stays true to who the way that it was originally written.
yeah, this
Yeah.
trilogy tells the story of seemingly minor characters who are heavily impacted by the rise of Palpatine and follow the way that they navigate the destruction and chaos that accompanied the rise and fall of the Galactic Empire. So those characters that are like the center of this trilogy are Darth Maul,
Yep.
Boba Fett, Rex, Ahsoka, and then the various participants in the Mandalorian Civil War. So Satine, Bo-Katan, Sabine, and then Death Watch. So when we first meet Mando and the Child in the first season of The Mandalorian, they don't appear to be a part of this group. However, a couple episodes in, we learned that Mando was orphaned by the Clone Wars, was adopted by Death Watch, and that the Child, eventually called Grogu, was a victim of the Jedi Purge. So these are just other characters who are just dealing with the fallout from Mandalore and all of the machinations by the Sith.
And one of the biggest compliments I can give to Dave Filoni's overall vision, whatever you want to call it, of his interpretation of Star Wars is that, for me, it's the most Star Wars. And what I mean when I say that is
100%.
that it's the perfect balance of actual Star Wars, military fighting, the whole thing, and the Jedi thing, because like when you watch the prequel trilogy, it's like all Jedi. Just all Jedi all the time. And when you watch the sequel trilogy, it's like also all Jedi, but just in a worse way, except for The Last Jedi.
It truly feels like an expanded universe,
Yeah,
right? It feels like you are still in the same universe, whereas with like the sequel trilogy, maybe not as much, right?
Yep.
Where you kind of, they're like, oh, we want to do something new, we want to show you something that we've never seen before. Well, Dave Filoni doesn't do that. He wants to show you things that you have seen before, right? And he just wants to expand on them, right? And that's the correct way to do an expanded universe.
Right.
And with Clone Wars, I always viewed Clone Wars as saving the prequel trilogy. I was not a fan of the prequel trilogy, but I viewed the Clone Wars
Makes
as
it
kind of
better.
filling in the gap.
Yeah,
so
makes it better.
going around the table, I wasn't a big fan of the prequel trilogy until Clone Wars. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, I would say that's pretty accurate. I think The Phantom Menace gets a lot more hate than it deserves because Clone Wars is 100% a worse movie. With
Attack of the Clones.
Attack of the Clones.
Attack of the Clones.
With the exception of some of Hayden Christensen's overly angsty, just him, I do think Revenge of the Sith is legitimately a very good movie, easily the best of the prequel trilogy. And honestly, if there was any actor in that role aside from Hayden Christensen, it could have easily been one of the best Star Wars movies, period.
So for me, absolutely, I loved the Revenge of the Sith, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. I saw it 3 times in the theater. Phantom Menace, I agree with you. I think it gets a lot more hate than it deserves. I think it's a way better movie. Attack of the Clones, no, that movie was not good. It has really cool moments, which is like tragic, and like the whole reveal of Yoda getting a chance to fight was cool. But anyway, but I was actually late to the Clone Wars cartoon game. I didn't start watching it until right before season 7 came out.
I'm the same way.
And I hadn't seen a single episode, so I didn't watch any of it. And then forget about it. Rebels, people had been talking to me about Rebels for years, and I hadn't watched it until just last year.
What about you, Steve?
I mean, the third Revenge of the Sith is probably my favorite out of the 3, just because you get to hear Palpatine say "Execute Order 66," which is one of my favorite lines out of any movie. I mean, it's just like when he tells Cody and and all the clones to do it, and it was just like, wow, this is how it actually happened. This is what,
It's such a powerful moment.
It's such
the
a
way
and it was just amazing, and like and I know the Clone Wars cartoon they go into a little bit and how like some of the clones disobeyed the order, and and like that to me was just. To see that in the cartoon was just awesome. Like to see like how they put that onto film or cartoon.
So that's a really, really interesting point that you bring up. Do you think that it's because of the Clone Wars that Order 66, now when you go back and rewatch it in the movie, because I remember when I saw it originally in Revenge of the Sith,
sloppy.
I was like, oh, it feels weird. But now when I go back and watch Revenge of the Sith, it means so much more to me.
Yeah.
And like I think it is because of Clone Wars and because of a lot of the things that Dave Filoni was able to do around it, as well as some other people with just kind of everything else, but really mainly, Clone Wars.
So
but you're absolutely right. I mean, people getting a chance to see the clones actually rebelling and Commander Cody actually fighting against it and having his
and Five's almost figuring it out. Like they do such a great job with like the prequel, because you know that they're not going to figure it out, but it's still a mystery where you're like is Five's going to figure out what's going on?
Yeah.
And as great as they do Order 66 and its execution in Revenge of the Sith, I think Filoni does an even better job in the final season. Like,
I was just going to say,
those final 4 episodes,
100%.
they have a different intro even. They have like a retro Lucasfilm logo. Like, you could watch those 4 as a single film. And I think that's one of the better Star Wars films if you think of it like that.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm saying that
so much
scene
better.
makes the scene in Revenge of the Sith so much better and so much more important.
And Ahsoka's reaction to it makes her better morally than many of the other Jedi, and makes you think that maybe the Jedi deserved it a little bit, because when Order 66 goes down, all the Jedi just start fighting back and killing
Yoda
back.
chops those 2 guys' heads off instantly.
Ahsoka,
It's a cool scene.
That's Commander Guy. What's his name?
Oh, that's too deep for me. I don't know the name of
I
that guy.
know-
Got his
I
head
know
cut
Rex,
off.
I
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
So before we get into
Yeah.
Filoni's Star Wars, I want to call out two quick things. One, normal format of the show is we talk about what's in canon, what's not in canon. To be clear, there is no conversation to be had.
Yeah,
here.
it's always hard with Star Wars because
yeah.
Star Wars is very definitively,
Yeah. Rebels-
you know what's canon and
Yeah.
what's not.
Rebels, Clone Wars, Mandalorian are in canon. However, there is one piece of fodder that we should just touch on quickly before we talk about the canon Clone Wars, and that's Gendy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars, which came out before this, and it was in that Samurai Jack animation style.
Yeah.
It was 2 short seasons, I think like 12 or 13 episodes.
They were
a
shorter
season.
episodes.
They
They
were
were mini bits.
They were like webisodes
Yeah.
almost,
I was
like
gonna say,
15 minutes long. Yeah,
aren't they coming back?
Very short, very quick. I still have them on DVD, and they are, they're not as good as Filoni's, but they're their own thing. They're really cool, and they do fill in all those gaps, and it tells a really cool story because the final episode literally leads directly into the beginning of Revenge of the Sith. It's General Grievous and an army of droids. They descend on the capital or the Republic, and they take Emperor Palpatine, and you actually get to see why Grievous is all wheezy because he has a brief fight with Mace Windu, and as he's escaping on his ship, Mace Windu had ripped his chest open, and as Grievous is escaping on the ship, Mace Windu force closes, like he collapses his chest in on him. So that's why he's wheezing at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith.
No,
And that's
that
where Ventress
originally
came from.
that originally came out before Revenge of the Sith, right? Like you actually had an opportunity to watch that before going to see
they
the
were
movie.
being released while the prequels were being released. Whereas
right.
Clone Wars didn't come out until many years after
2008,
2008. So, but yeah, I like that. It's actually
I like
coming
it. It's
to
very
Disney
good.
Plus. It's
Oh,
good.
It is.
And
I still have it on
Steve,
DVD.
you're absolutely right. It's
And I
definitely
do-
coming to Disney Plus.
Yes, I saw
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And I'm actually, I never got to see them, so I'm actually very excited to.
Yeah, they're
when they
very
do come
cool.
out.
Like it's not as good, but it's
No,
its
of
own
course,
thing. It's
yeah.
very
Yeah,
good.
I think they technically contradict some of the Clone Wars TV show, so that's why it's not canon. But it did introduce Ventress, and Ventress came from that and then became canon.
okay.
Just like the books introduced characters like Thrawn and some
It's
others.
like
that have
canon
been-
light.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it's canon. I mean, that along with the Boba Fett cartoon from the holiday special and the Ewok movies are all being added to Disney
gosh.
Plus.
Yeah.
And I will die on this hill. The Ewok movies are canon. They're canon.
The Ewok
God.
movies
I've
are
never
not
actually seen
canon.
them.
Really?
I've never actually seen the Ewok movies.
Oh my God!
I
remember
remember seeing one of them like a lot.
I didn't know
Like
this
I
either,
watched it a
too.
bunch of times when I was a kid, but I don't.
Yeah, I think I'm young. I think I'm old enough where I actually saw them televised.
Yeah,
which is even
I saw 'em.
crazier.
Yeah, I saw 'em
That's
on
why I
TV.
think I have as a kid, you don't think about continuities and what's canon and what's not. So
Yeah.
like
You
as
just
a
watch
kid,
it and
it was
put it
just
in.
another Star Wars movie that I
Yeah,
watched.
exactly. It's all canon.
Yeah, because I'm old enough to have been a Star Wars fan before like the explosion of the 90s. Like there was a period in the early 90s. I'm born in '86, so early 90s when I'm like 5 or 6, Star Wars toys aren't for sale at the store.
No.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no.
my
Yeah.
grandmother
Yeah.
would go to antique stores.
Listen to this fucking
In-
hipster over here. I was
in
into
upstate
Star
New
Wars
York.
before. No,
So I had these like 70s action figures.
those are the best.
And that was the only way to get them. She would have to go to like antique stores and like parents would like sell their kids action figures. So I had all these like old.
So it's funny that
figures.
you say that because my cousins growing up, they're like, most of them are like at least 10 years older than me.
Yeah.
I was a kid, I don't know, 10, 11 years old or like whatever. And like we'd be hanging out and they would show me their old Star Wars toys from the 70s and I didn't know what the hell they were. I was like, what is all this shit? And then a few years later when they started to do the, the re-release special edition and everything else, I was like, oh, they had the old Millennium Falcon, it was awesome.
The stuff that I
I'm
had
so
when I was
jealous.
little.
I'm so jealous. The stuff when that I had when I was little for Star Wars, so much cooler. They had the full play sets
Oh
and
my
everything,
God,
where
yeah.
it was like Jabba's palace,
Yes.
and they had like the sand-crawler, and they had these huge, humongous like play sets. They
don't-
have figures now.
They don't make 'em
but
anymore
they don't make
'cause
the play sets.
It's so. I was actually listening to. I don't know if it was a podcast or it was either Nerdist or somewhere, but they were talking about why they don't make them anymore. It's just so expensive for them to make these toys now.
Yeah.
That to charge if they made a Sandcrawler right now, they would charge somebody $300 for that. How many people are buying that? You
Yeah,
know?
because they have to
exactly.
make
It's
it
all
well.
Lego. Lego's taken up that.
Oh my God.
And that's
that little
there it
segment of
is.
the-
And I'm fine with
Because
that.
if
Business,
you're
yeah.
gonna play with it, it's gonna be Legos,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Most others, like action figures and stuff like that, people don't buy them, unfortunately,
Well-
to play with them anymore.
No, I
people
collect
buy
them.
them to collect
Yeah,
them.
I certainly still don't play with them.
I collect Black Series figures, and like
but the
The
Black
Black Series
Series,
figures
the
are
Black
great.
Series
I
are awesome.
have hundreds.
Yeah.
Oh, I just
Yeah.
pre-ordered. Getting off to non-canon. The Green Rabbit Jackson.
Oh,
I just
yeah.
pre-ordered the Jackson. I was texting these guys because like I saw an article that
I
it was
saw 'em
available,
and I was like,
and then it wasn't available for pre-order, and I was like going to different
There's
sites. Like,
so many better
but I found it.
characters that
Yeah.
they could have made.
he's so
So
crazy.
many.
He's so crazy.
It's so
great.
random.
Because what they do with these Black Series, and they did it with Ahsoka
Yeah.
before she was in the show, is that with these Black Series versions of animated characters, they sculpt them as though they were live action.
Yes.
So like this Jackson doesn't look like cartoonish. He doesn't look like Roger Rabbit, green. He looks like kind of like a badass, like anthropomorphized rabbit with like scruffy fur.
Yeah.
and actually looks pretty cool.
The sculpts are incredible. I got as a gift from a friend. I got it was a Black Series figure, but it was like rando character from Canto Blythe, or
Yeah.
maybe that was the name.
Canto
I forget.
Bite, yeah.
Yeah. And even that is just like, this is just an incredible figure. Like, this nothing character is an incredible figure.
The clones and the stormtroopers are amazing in those.
Yes.
The Black Series. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like they're making all these like weird. They redid a Luke again. How many Lukes do we need? Seriously. I mean, I won't buy it because like I already have like 5 Lukes, and like I don't need another Luke.
One more with a little mini baby Yoda.
Oh, yeah.
One more with a little Grogu.
Just holding it, yeah.
But they did not Black Series. Star Wars. I think Hasbro did it. They did a Hasbro project, and they made a Razor Crest, and I think it's like $400. But it's like, and
Worth it.
As soon as they said that they were going, because they like fulfilled, I think it was like 40,000 or some
Wow.
crazy amount of people that had bought in the Razor Crest. They blew it up the next day,
Exactly.
and everyone was like, "Are you kidding me?" And everyone was like so up in arms because they were like, "Wait, I just bought this toy, and now you just destroyed it, and then it's not even in
It's not in the show anymore. Yeah.
And speaking of toys in the show, so on the screen behind us right now,
Oh, we're screening.
we're screening one of the episodes of Mandalorian, and talking about how good Filoni is in terms of bringing things in from continuity. The troop transport
Yep.
that we see in the final
This is a
episode
great-
of season
yeah.
1,
Very-
and
very
that
on
we're
point.
seeing in this chase scene where they blow up the Imperial Armory. This troop transport, I have the Toya from the 80s.
Yeah.
It was never on screen. It looks like a big van, and it has little slots on the side where like the troops would go as though they were walking out. This was just a toy that was made by Kenner and never like made
Yep.
it on screen. Filoni has added it to Rebels and to Mandalorian.
Yep.
So instead of just having a random, newly designed vehicle, Filoni goes back into like Star Wars history and grabs a toy and makes it real.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the genius of what he does.
Yeah, he has been able to successfully take elements that people loved from Legends and successfully brought them into the canon, right?
Exactly.
One of the best characters, my absolute favorite character from Star Wars Rebels, Grand Admiral Thrawn. Now, I was a huge Grand Admiral Thrawn fan. I read the Thrawn trilogy, the Zahn trilogy, the Timothy Zahn trilogy, when I was a kid. I read all 3 books. I had them on paperback. They were super thick. They were like these small books, but they were like this thick. And I used to love them. I would take them when I had to go on car trips with like my parents and everything. And I absolutely love those books. And to be able to see Grand Admiral Thrawn on screen, and he was done like really well, like
Yes.
almost
Yeah, it was
perfect
incredible.
to the way that he was originally written.
And what I like about that is, and we'll talk a little bit more about this when we get to Rebels, but the Thrawn that we see on Rebels, it's a prequel to the books too. Like we don't know what Thrawn is.
Right.
They keep Thrawn's
Yeah.
backstory in the books very unclear.
We think he's dead. We don't know.
Exactly. Well, yeah, we're going to see him in Mandalorian, but yeah, Filoni bringing in different like creating new characters and bringing in characters from Legends is like what he does best. And so right off the bat, we haven't gotten into to like some of the releases here. So let's start. This whole universe, as we like to think of it, the Filoni-verse, it begins in 2008 with the Star Wars: The Clone Wars film, which I can say I saw in this theater. I saw it with my brother.
Yeah, it was a
right
cartoon.
here, maybe like 20 feet
Right.
that way.
It had the same style of animation, and wasn't it all about like rescuing Baby Hutt?
It was.
Right?
It was Rhoda the Hutt,
Yeah,
Jabba's son.
right, yeah.
So it was like your classic, like almost like World War II inspired storyline where like the Separatists captured Rhoda the Hutt and they were gonna like blame the Republic for it so that they could get the underworld, mostly controlled by Jabba the Hutt, to be on their side. But of course, Anakin and his newly introduced Ahsoka, who's like super tiny, just a child. This introduces Ahsoka and Rex, and they help save Rhoda the Hutt, save the Republic. This help eventually opens up the Outer Rim to the Republic. The whole
And
deal.
become two of the
It's great.
coolest and most well-developed characters in
Yeah.
Star Wars, period.
And they set up some things that we actually end up seeing throughout the entire series of these things, which is like one quote that I love is that throughout the Clone Wars show, and they do it right off the bat from this movie, is Anakin just says "race you to the top" as they're like they are leading an army against a fortified position of droids on a super specific task to save the Republic, and he's joking about it. He's like racing to the top.
Yeah.
And then in the final season, when Ahsoka and Rex are leading their troops down to Mandalore, she says race you to the city.
Yep.
And she like jumps off of she jumps without a Captain America style without a parachute. She jumps out of one of the clone dropships. So they just tie in all these little things, and it's a continuation, like it's one storyline. And I love Ahsoka. Ahsoka's my favorite Jedi, I have to say. I love
by
Luke,
far.
but Ahsoka's
Yeah.
my favorite
By
Jedi.
far.
She was a great character addition. It really reminds me of Harley Quinn in the Batman series, right?
Yeah.
Or the Batman universe, right? Harley Quinn was originally written for Batman the Animated Series, right? Ahsoka, now getting a chance to see her cross over into Mandalorian and potentially bringing her, because Rosario Dawson nailed it. Perfect casting,
perfect.
amazing acting.
She looks good. She has the right tone.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
She has great timing. She's got the ability to wield a lightsaber. She's believable when she does. And not for nothing, but even before I thought she was a Jedi, like Rosario Dawson, like if you told me she was going to kick my ass, maybe I would believe it, right? Like she seems like that kind of person that could.
I always thought she was meant for that role. Like,
Yeah, I agree,
when I heard rumbles like years ago that were like, oh, maybe you'll get so and so, and they were like Rosario Dawson, I was like, wow, she would be the most amazing person to play her. And I, with her character, I think they needed, I feel like they needed to do a young Jedi. I feel like they did all these like older, like, their mid-20s. I felt like when they introduced her, she was like in her teens, or maybe even younger. And I thought that was awesome. Like they're actually showing like what a Jedi looks like. They showed the younglings when Anakin killed them all.
Yeah. Right.
What a dick.
Yeah. But that's kind of what you're saying, though. That's kind of what we want to see. Is we want to see that angsty teenage Jedi.
We skip
I kinda
over that.
do, like we always do it.
The prequel trilogy skips over teenage Anakin.
Yeah.
Right? He goes from maybe like 10 or 11, right, to like 17, 18.
Well,
like,
I mean,
but they
like,
still
like
make him
Jesus,
angsty.
right? Like
but
Jesus.
angsty when you're 15 is different when angsty when you're about to
Well,
be
see,
married.
you miss
You
out.
know, it's like it's a different thing.
But see, that's one of the things I think that Clone Wars does the best is that and what Filoni does well in general is
Good and well.
Yeah, good and well. Very much good well. Going
good.
back and making things better by what he's doing currently. Like you see Marvel do this a lot where they release new stuff and you're like, oh, whatever happens in XYZ scene is making this better. For Clone Wars, one of the things that he really did for me was make Anakin a more likable character.
Yeah.
Because again, I always said Anakin just was not, the weakest part of the prequel trilogy overall. But when you watch the Clone Wars, it somehow just geniusly weaves into what was already there and makes Anakin a cooler character.
He's the king of the retcon, the quote.
Because normally retcon is bullshit, but this time it
this
works.
is great. Like what he does is there are two big problems with the prequel trilogy. One is Anakin, and he fixes that right off the bat in the Clone Wars movie because there's this quote that I really enjoy, and it says, "You're reckless, little one. You never would have made it as Obi-Wan's Padawan, but you might make it as mine."
Yep.
That kind of sums up this different type of philosophy they throw into Anakin, where he's a little bit reckless.
Yeah.
but not in the dark way that they get to right off the bat in Attack of the Clones. Like they just make him. It's more that he's cocky, but also like for a reason. Like he understands that he's cocky. Like that quote,
Right. He
is
knows
him
what he's got.
understanding who he is.
Yeah.
And then the other issue with the prequels that they fix is all of the like politics and the Trade Federation
Yes,
and
and
all
the
this.
senators
Yeah,
and-
like but they fix all that because it's hard to like do a political drama over 3 movies that also have a lot of action. Whereas with
Yeah.
the TV show, they can have some of the machinations and behind the scenes, and they kind of explain all that away, and it fixes the only problem with prequels. Like I have now since watched the prequels since Clone Wars, and I enjoy it so much better because
Yeah,
instead of
totally different
because
movie.
instead because
Very,
and it's
very
because in my
different.
head I'm inserting like, oh well, they're doing that because there was this whole thing where Anakin brought Padme to this trade delegation thing. You know, it's like I know where all this is coming from.
The sand, it gets everywhere.
Oh, it's rough and coarse.
Of course, it gets everywhere.
I think it's also, I blame the writing on it also, but I think
Oh, of course, yeah.
I think the Anakin in the prequels was just such a whiny bitch.
Yeah, he was
basically,
Like,
yeah.
it was
so-
just like,
Yeah.
And the Anakin in the Clone Wars was like, let's do it, let's get it done. Let's
Yeah,
you
it
know.
makes him such
He
a better
enjoys himself,
character,
like in the final season, like when he shows up on that bridge and he's smiling. Like you don't realize that, like when he's having this good time playing with the droids, he's like 2 days away from killing a bunch of kids. But he seems like this really cool guy.
And it's worth noting too. It's like we talk about Anakin being a whiny bitch, but it's really just in the Clone Wars. Like
Yeah.
the Clone
Yeah.
Wars is what
or Attack of the Clones.
I'm sorry, I keep on saying
Yeah.
the Clone Wars. Attack of
Yeah,
the Clones.
Attack of
Thank
the
you.
Clones.
Attack of the Clones in one movie, they
Yeah.
just destroyed his character and
Yeah.
then built it back up a little bit in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah,
and he
Revenge of
wasn't
the
as
Sith.
whiny.
Revenge of the Sith. I really enjoyed
Yeah.
Hayden Christensen, and I'm a fan of Hayden Christensen as an actor. There's actually a couple of other movies of his that I really enjoy. I thought he did a good job in Revenge of the Sith and really took the character in a big way. But there's also, you feel very much that you're missing story in between the two movies.
You like Jumper, do you?
Jumper was okay. I liked Life as a House. That one.
Well, that was, I mean,
Probably
listen,
even
that's where they picked him out of from after that movie, Life is a
Yeah.
House. They were like,
Yeah.
oh, this kid's gonna be a great actor.
yeah.
He wasn't.
No, he wasn't.
Like, I'm
We're
sorry.
gonna both make and destroy your career
Well,
in one foul
Revenge
swoop.
of the Sith was a better movie, though.
No,
it was
absolutely,
a much
yeah. Oh, of course.
cooler Anakin. We got a chance to see Anakin, become Darth Vader. What it was like, that whole story that we always wanted to see. And I think, especially with everything that Filoni has done, the way they did it in Revenge of the Sith is it does make sense and it is worth it.
Hayden was dealt a bad hand,
Yes.
and he made a lot with very little. But the point of why we're doing an episode on Filoni first, it's almost sacrilegious that
Yeah.
we're doing Filoni rather before Lucas.
Oh my
But
gosh!
I do think
if
we
you
have
had
to
gone
say
back to
Lucas.
1997 and told
Yeah.
13-year-old me that we would be talking about someone else before talking about the original theatrical trilogy of Star Wars,
Your nerd-
I probably would have
nerd
gone. I
rage
would have lost
would
my
just
mind.
be
But Filoni is the disciple of Lucas. Like Lucas wrote, produced, and was a big part of the Clone Wars series. Like it's not, he was in
Right.
charge of Star Wars. Clone Wars is as much a product of Lucas as it is Filoni. Like
Right.
so for all of the critiques that we have of Lucas, like we have to say he also helped fix what he made wrong.
Yeah.
And like some of
much
those
so.
fixes, that we haven't talked about is yet. So Darth Maul. Darth Maul is Darth Maul and Boba Fett are two of the coolest looking characters in the movie.
Right.
They look amazing, but they are a product of production design. They're a product of the costume, the helmet, the makeup. But their
One of-
storylines are shit.
Well, and of course, famously, Darth Maul was supposed to have a much larger,
Yeah.
speaking, like anything
Yeah.
role. He wasn't just supposed to be a backdrop to look badass. He was, but I forget what the specific reason was. I think it had to do with the actor. I don't remember what it was, but they cut out 98% of his speaking
on there.
lines.
There we go. We got Ahsoka. But
Hello, Ahsoka.
But like in the TV shows, Darth Maul gets a full character arc.
Oh,
It's
my
crazy.
God.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Beautiful.
I mean, it's
all
wild.
the way until that amazing scene in Rebels where you
Rebels at
see
the
him
end.
die at the hands
Oh,
of
yeah.
Obi-Wan for real this time.
I need to see that live action.
Oh yeah.
Real live action.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great if
That
they were
would
to-
that scene
'cause-
would be awesome. I agree.
And they saved
Oh,
Boba
man.
Fett too, and the Mandalorians. All the Mandalorians, like the Mandalorians, were just this really cool armor that sold toys.
Yep.
And then when you get to, first the Clone Wars, then Rebels, and now the Mandalorian, which is just a continuation of that Mandalorian storyline, you get this whole fully formed world of Mandalore. This is the way. You get all this, and it was right off the bat. It was in Clone Wars. Like Mandalore is this, it's this neutral planet, and then you get this Mandalorian civil war.
Yep.
And you introduce all these characters. You give Obi-Wan a love interest, who's the head of Mandalore,
Which is
deepens
so
his character.
it's so juicy for like fan fiction and everything like that.
Well, I was
Like-
talking about more like
No, but I mean,
Nah.
it's because that's Dave Filoni, right?
Yeah.
So he took essentially what now you would consider really not more than fan fiction, the legend stories, and brought them into canon, right? So like Mandalorians, period.
Yeah.
Like before Dave Filoni, before Clone Wars, before the Mandalorian. There was Boba Fett and there was Jango Fett,
Right.
And then that was it. And Jango Fett dies in the only movie that he shows up in.
And now-
Boba
and-
Fett was only in the third movie for he's in all three, but only for
Yeah.
like 2 seconds.
2 seconds,
You never
yeah.
really see him do anything.
Well,
and now we've seen fight sequences with like dozens of them.
Yes, and I think
Yeah.
the fans loving Boba Fett so much and Jango
Yep.
Fett, I think that's why they came and were like, we need to do something more with these characters. They're such beloved characters, and they're like, why are we showing them their backstories? Why are we showing them where they're coming from? And I think showing Mandalore, and I think Sabine and Bo-Katan, sorry. I think showing them, and I think that's awesome. I think to just open up that whole entire world. I mean, they could probably do a whole entire trilogy of just about Mandalore. About
easily.
where
Easily.
it came from, the Death Watch, to where it's going to go from in the Mandalorian. And who knows?
Yeah, and
Now-
Satine. And one last thing about Satine is, it gives Obi-Wan this backstory that makes it clear that he's better than Anakin, because you don't see other Jedi throughout the prequel trilogy, and even so much in the first part of Clone Wars, as having romantic interests. So when Obi-Wan has feelings for Satine and doesn't act on it,
Yep.
that is like a complete dichotomy when it comes to what Anakin does. Like, so Anakin's not the first one who has a crush on somebody, even if it's
Right.
true love. Like, he's not the first person to deal with this issue. He's just the first person to deal with this issue and then destroy the galaxy because of it.
I mean, come on. Yoda's been alive for what was it, 800 years? In 800 years, he doesn't have somonone he loves.
And we
or
know how
someone,
cute he was back when he was young.
Yeah,
Don't you
come
think he
on,
could have gotten
yeah.
some? Come on.
Well, isn't there? There's also like a lore that was it
Yaddle.
Yaddle and Yoda.
Yeah,
I mean,
so Yaddle was in
Yaddle, who's
episode
on the
1.
dock, we got a nice look
Yeah.
at that. Yaddle,
Yeah.
Yaddle does not look like she doesn't look as good as
She
as
sees
this
it.
baby.
No.
She looks lost in this photo I found online. She looks like she doesn't know where she
But
is.
that is actually the only time you ever see her.
Yep.
The only time.
The only time. It's
I think-
only in the background for like 2 seconds.
And I think after that, after you see her there, she's replaced with another Jedi in the council.
And here's what's
Yeah,
great.
when they did actually. Like,
No, they absolutely did. Yeah, they replaced her.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
And
Absolutely.
speaking to Filoni's genius here, is he could have had many reasons be like the turn for the Mando. Like, why does he like take care of this kid? It could have been any species.
Yeah.
But as expansive as even the Legends books are, they never get into Yoda backstory. You don't know that. You still don't know the name of that species.
No.
What planet they're from.
Nope.
And you only saw one other member of his species in a movie, and that was Yaddle for like 5 seconds.
But you do know that Yoda was 900 years old.
100%,
That's one
right.
thing that you do know about.
So what's great is Filoni's able to just take this little bit. He finds like the one nugget of the Star Wars universe that's never been explored, and he bases the show around it because
Yep.
there's this mystery that you eventually find a little bit more of season 2, and I think we'll get into more of it in season 3. Is what is the species? What do they do? What's going on with them?
And I think that was really like what he's done. That is and I mean I said it earlier, but I mean that is the key way to create an expanded universe. Take something that you know, and then expand on it,
Yeah.
right? That's what we as fans we do. That's why when we were all watching Star Wars when we were kids, and we had the original trilogy, we'd pick out those little characters that you'd see. You're like, oh, that character looks cool, or that character, I want to know everything about the Shistavan Wolfman, or I want to know everything about Figure and Don and the Modal Nodes, right?
Yeah.
Like playing the Bith Shuffle inside the cantina on Tatooine, man, right? Like you see these characters that are on screen for 30 seconds, but you love them and you become like addicted to them, and you're like, oh, because they made action figures of them.
Yep.
Because they
And on the
wrote
back of
about
the
them.
action figures, they would give
They
them
would
like
give
some
a little
sort
bit of backstory.
Yeah.
So you could play with them, and you would create as a kid your
Yeah.
own universe with these expanded figures.
Yeah.
I used to love
These
collecting
little minute characters.
I used to love collecting the minute background characters when I was a kid because they would made a figure
Yeah.
for every single one of them.
Snaggletooth,
no matter-
or all
exactly.
these,
How
yeah.
Star
irrelevant
Wars
they
was the
were.
first movie
Yeah.
to do
Yeah, and
that.
I just make up my own story with them when I was playing. Oh, like all of a sudden now this guy's a Jedi. Bam, done. You know, take an extra lightsaber from my Obi-Wan toy. Bam, you got a blue lightsaber. you know,
I'll give Filoni a lot of. I think the directors who directed a lot of these Mandalorian episodes, I give them a lot of, like Bryce Dallas Howard.
Yeah.
I mean, even Jon Favreau. Jon Favreau, he's in like the grips of Disney. Like, you know,
Yeah.
they have him such tight because
Golden calf for them, man.
I mean,
yeah, he's like the golden goose for them, man.
yeah, and you know what? I love it. Go from. I don't know how many of you have seen PCU.
yeah, one of my
course.
favorite
You know,
movies.
John Favreau from PCU. That's
Yeah, it's
all
great.
that's all I see in my mind. I don't
Can
see
you
him as
blow
Honor.
me where the Pampers is?
Yes. So, like, you know, all these episodes that we watch of The Mandalorian, they're awesome, and you know, just to see these people, they've all been Star Wars fans, and then they're able to now bring these characters to life with,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
it's just.
They're
Yeah.
playing with the action figures in real
Yeah,
life.
in
Yeah.
real life. And they're
It's like in
playing-
Spaceballs when
Yeah.
when you play with the action figures.
Exactly, exactly.
That's Bryce Dallas Howard. Just
Yeah.
Dark
a little bit bigger budget.
You know, I have to say, her dad did it. After watching it a few more times now, the Solo story. I actually, when I first saw it, I was like, "What is this? This is garbage."
Yeah.
I watched it again and again. I was like, you know, this actually isn't so bad. This
There's
actually, you know,
there's really bad moments,
good- yeah.
but there's a lot of good.
There's
in
a
it.
lot.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
lot to
Well,
like.
that-
There's a lot to hate.
We don't
Bad
know how
moments
much
in
he.
every great movie.
Yeah, we don't know how much he inherited though. Like we don't.
Right.
You know, like we don't know what it was before he took over.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's
Also
important
true.
to know.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because wait, wasn't it supposed to be?
Lord and Miller
Lord and
directed
Miller,
I think,
yes.
like nearly half of the film.
Yes.
And then he took, and then there was
Because he was doing like a comedic, like take.
It was a
on
little
it.
Yeah.
bit too. I don't-
Campy or like, I don't know.
I guess.
Hashtag release the Lord and Miller cut.
Oh, no. Yeah. So. But speaking of different cuts and just how Filoni introduces these characters, the first season of all of his shows tends to focus on the established characters.
Yes.
So Rebels starts off, it's all about Luke and Anakin, and as the show progresses, the characters he introduces, Ahsoka, Rex, his people, start to take prominence. You know, like, then the same thing happens in Rebels. So Rebels is the follow-up to Clone Wars. Rebels starts in 2014, goes to 2018. It's kind of bookended by Clone Wars.
And
because,
it's where we get my favorite Jedi.
yes.
That is my
Ezra
favorite
Bridger.
Jedi.
Is that, or is it Kanan?
No, it's Kanan.
Kanan.
Kanan
Kanan,
Jarrus.
yeah.
Or Caleb Dune, depending on.
Yeah.
Yes. It is that Kanan Jarrus is my favorite.
How great would it
Jedi.
be to have Freddie Prinze Jr. play him in some sort of flashback?
That would be pretty dope.
In
would be
either
great.
like
Yeah.
Obi-Wan
That would be cool.
or
That'd be pretty dope.
Ahsoka,
Yeah.
you know, because he looks just like him.
Yeah.
So Rebels has like the first season of Rebels is all about the new team,
Yep.
which is I was not, for those of you watching, I almost knocked the microphone over, but I caught it. I was just so expressive. I was so excited about the crew of the Ghost. So they introduced this new team, this cell of Rebels, and then towards the end of that first season, that's when they start hitting you with all of the Filoni characters, which
Yep.
is Ahsoka, Rex. They start tying in everything. And jumping ahead to Mandalorian, the first season is its own thing.
Yeah.
But once you get to the second season, they start hitting you with
Yeah, bam.
Ahsoka.
Yeah.
They mention Thrawn. They
Yep.
have all the Mandalorians, Bo-Katan. So what they do is the first season he lets lets you get introduced to this team, and then he ties in like the rest of the storyline. And the larger storyline for him is Ahsoka, Rex, and the Mandalorians. And that's why these three shows are one story.
Yep.
He's just
Yeah.
told over the course of nearly 2 decades now.
And they're fantastic. So for me, Rebels is my favorite. I like Rebels even more than I like The Mandalorian. Rebels, I mean, there's still more of The Mandalorian to come, so that might change.
Yes.
But Rebels is my favorite of just any Star Wars thing.
Rebels
period.
Rebels is such a strange show because it is so much better than it has any right to be. It is a children's TV show that was, and I mean, like, and if you watch, there's
The
a
Imperials
lot,
are really campy.
there's a lot of
is this one,
episodes where it is very, very childish. Like you feel like you're watching a children's TV show, but then all of a sudden there's these moments where you're like, wow, and you feel like you're watching a show.
The issue
for
I have
adults.
is the finale. I when it ended, it just ended, and they were just like, wait, that's it?
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, shouldn't there be some like big huge fights? Like, it literally, like, for everyone who hasn't seen it, like, Thorne and Bridger get sucked out into space.
See, that was one of the reasons
with-
why I loved it, because it ended on a cliffhanger,
I
basically.
hated that.
Stop
I
that
hated
so
that. And I hated it. It was like,
much.
oh, there's a creature that can go the speed of light.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden,
They
it's like
introduced
this-
those in like season
Yeah.
2. Remember, it all comes back around.
And also-
I
but, like,
remember
come
them in
on, like-
season 2, and I didn't
It was
like them
showing
then.
you how
and
powerful Ezra's connection
and
to the
I
Force
hated
was.
Bendu. I'm not gonna.
God.
Wait,
Bendu was
any,
the-
Bendu was
any
the
qualms
big
about
boy.
it.
Yeah, it was like the
He's the
Deus Ex
in-between
Machina character.
I'll give you that one. That
you
was a
know
little-
it. It's like
yeah.
seeing a gun in the first scene. You know that he's gonna eventually be Deus Ex Machina.
I will
and
give
then
you,
bam, he does.
I will give you Bendu, but I absolutely loved the little whale creatures, whatever they were,
Yeah.
because one of the themes they always played on throughout all of Rebels was how Ezra's connection to the Force was completely different than Kanan's was.
The wolves
you
and all
know,
that,
exactly. Like it was just so
we had more
cool.
of a we had more of a spiritual connection
Exactly.
with creatures than he did with
right,
with
and it
people.
really paid off in the end. I thought it was cool, and it leaves you on a
Is-
cliffhanger because, like, you know, it's like I had this argument with our friend Justin all the time. He's like, "Well, they didn't finish the story in the MCU." I'm like, "Yeah, listen, there's 15 more shows and movies coming out in the next year.
Yeah.
They're gonna finish the story." That's how I
Exactly.
feel about Star Wars. Until you tell me there's no more new Star Wars coming out, I'm just gonna wait because it'll get there eventually.
Yeah, Rebels isn't a standalone show.
No.
Rebels is the continuing of a story. So
Yeah.
what they had to do with Rebels is they had to tell the story of Kanan Jarrus and Ezra Bridger, but they had to make those two not be around when A New Hope takes place.
Of course.
Yeah.
Because Luke has to be the only Jedi during
Yep.
the
Right, because it totally
climax of
negates
the
the whole
rebellion.
movie if they're still around.
So they kill off Kanan in an amazing, like, very self-sacrificial way. That's a great scene. And then they have Ezra disappear. And then they have this postscript that's a post-Endor scene that hints at this romantic relationship potentially with Sabine that we don't really see throughout the show. Ahsoka comes back, and Ahsoka and Sabine go out to find Ezra, which
Yeah.
we can only imagine is what Ahsoka is still doing when we see her in The
I-
Mandalorian.
I hope for the show Ahsoka that it opens with Sabine and Ahsoka flying through
Right.
space looking for Bridger.
Yeah.
And
I
here's
mean-
what's interesting is they probably, I feel like based on her line saying, "Where is Admiral Thrawn?"
Yeah.
This is like almost a decade after Admiral Thrawn disappeared.
Yeah.
So
She's
when she
still
says,
searching
"Where
for
is
it."
your master?" I think Thrawn has returned.
Right now.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
She has definitively,
Turn around.
I think,
It's
found out Thrawn has returned. And so now she's looking for Thrawn, not in the abstract sense, being like, "Oh, he disappeared years ago. I don't know where he is." He's doing machinations, and this gets into what I think the Mandalorian is going to do for the sequel trilogy. I think the Mandalorian, and it already has started seeding this a bit, is going to fix as best it can, because the sequel trilogy is worse than the prequel trilogy. It's going to fix as best it can the issues with the sequel trilogy, like the big problems of the sequel trilogy, beyond the fact that none of the directors apparently talk to each other. The big problem is that
It was poorly acted.
Oh,
the First Order.
The CGI was
the
terrible.
First Order is never.
The storylines
explained.
incorrect.
well, it's never explained where
The Final Order's never.
the bad guy is terrible.
And
You're never afraid of the villain.
but they are seeding in the Mandalorian like these like experiments.
There's no character development.
with Jedi. Yeah.
Have we gone through all the?
my big issue is like, you know, and that's what I was hoping. I'm hoping the Mandalorian, because the Mandalorian does take place. Was it 25 years before?
So it's
so an ancillary.
Like 5
years
Five
after
years
Return
before-
of the
yeah.
Jedi.
But all that
so,
is
yeah.
on like extended universe, like Lucasfilm websites and stuff. they've never definitively said
where-
on the show
On screen.
how long. So
Yeah.
it gives them a little bit of leeway, but it's supposed to be about 5 years after.
And
the
25
events
years
of Endor.
before.
Yeah, because it would
roughly,
be
yeah.
30
Yeah,
years.
roughly,
Force
yeah.
Awakens
Which
is 30 years
works
after.
when you see Luke. At the end,
Yeah.
and then-
So for me, like you were saying, like I want to see where did the First Order come from? Where did they just magically appear out of
Yeah.
nowhere,
Oh,
out of
God.
the air?
Oh,
I think
Agreed.
they come
Agreed.
from Thrawn and Gideon. I think we're going to see that.
I think
and
we're
I think
going
we're
to
gonna
see
that the final,
Palpatine.
yeah, and the final
Bring
order.
in Palpatine.
The
You bring
final-
him in
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
and bring him into the Mandalorian because
Yeah.
that's what they're starting to
makes the
sort of lay
sequel
the
trilogy
seeds
better.
for the clones.
The Grogu
You're
experiments are what
you're
leads to the
understanding where
clone
Snoke
of
comes
Palpatine.
from.
They're
Yeah.
gonna fix that storyline. I don't know if they'll completely save the movie, but they'll make
Well,
it.
no, it's impossible.
No, but
to
they'll-
complete- they can make
yeah.
it suck a little less.
But yeah, but they'll make it. They'll give it backstory. They,
Yeah.
Filoni's gonna retcon the
He
shit
saved,
out
he
of
saved
that.
midichlorians in one scene. He made midichlorians cooler in one scene than George Lucas could do in two
Yeah.
movies.
Oh,
Right.
when he
Yeah, but when he just talks about his M count.
Yeah.
Oh, his
yeah,
M
Qui-Gon
count
Jinn
is
like
this.
goes, here, let me take
Oh.
some of your blood. Some stranger's trying to take your blood.
The midichlorianception.
But he didn't. The thing that's great about it is he didn't abandon it. He didn't try and sweep it under the rug. He didn't try and
Yeah.
say, no,
He embraced
this
it.
isn't real. Let's not believe. Let's forget about that. No, let's embrace it. Yeah, exactly. And like, only a few people count midichlorians in blood or something like
Right.
that. Whatever. Who knows? You know.
Yeah.
I try to count mine all the time. I try to see if
Don't you have
They,
to have
charge,
your?
they charge extra for that in the lab test.
Well, I think they count your blood on the way in here, right? That's what it is.
yeah.
And talking about retcons, we have to talk about how Captain Rex is so deep into continuity
This is a
that,
great.
that he was at the Battle of Endor before he even existed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I mean,
He's so OG.
Looking-
he was in a movie before he was created.
Now, is
Looking
this
back at that-
definitively said that he was at the Battle
Dave
of Endor?
Filoni said it. So
Dave Filoni
if
said,
Dave
"I was at
Filoni
the Battle
says
of
it,
Endor."
I
it's
believe
true.
it.
That's
Whatever
the same
Filoni says
guy.
is true.
If Filoni said, like the sky was green or we didn't do the moon landing, I would have to think for a second. I'd
Yeah.
be like, wait, I don't know. If Filoni says it,
I mean,
I'd reevaluate what I think.
it's crazy how much you know where you see Filoni when he did Captain Rex towards the end of Rebels, how he looked and what he looks like in Return of the Jedi. It's like, is that really him? And you're like,
Looks just
shit,
like
it
him.
looks
Yeah,
just like him.
looks
It's
just
White
like
beard.
him.
There's a guy like when
Yeah, really
Han
does.
Solo leads that team to take over the shield generator. There's a guy who's right in the center of all the rebel soldiers, and he has this white beard. He's clearly older than everybody else. And then they end up putting Rex in that same outfit
Yep.
It was just
in the
so
final
great.
scene of
Yeah.
Rebels,
It's
which,
so
which is a
great.
little bit of a tease. And then, of course, a little bit later, at like a press event, Filoni's asked, and he says definitively yes. So
Yeah.
as long as he says it,
It's all right with me.
And I mean, Filoni is
Yeah.
pretty close with Lucas, so if Lucas gave him the blessing, then how
Well-
can you say it's not?
I think I read something that he was like doing nothing or whatever he was doing. He was not doing nothing, but he was doing something less than Star Wars. And Lucas came to him and was like, "Hey, do you want to do this?" He's like, "Yes."
he was just a
He's-
regular
yes, please.
animation.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
was an animator, and in
Yeah.
fact, the first thing he directed animation-wise was the Clone Wars film.
Yeah.
And then the first thing he directed live action was the episode of The Mandalorian that he directed. So he has kind of come up through this Star Wars thing, and even though he's not involved in all of these series going forward,
He should be.
He's
absolutely
I mean,
should be.
that's
yeah.
that's my
absolutely
personal
should be.
opinion, only because of, I think Star Wars, not that it's gone away, but it did lose its luster in a bit, and then when the Clone Wars came out, Rebels came out, people were like, okay, cool, more Star Wars, okay. And then he started doing The Mandalorian, and everyone was like, dude, who is this guy? And
Yeah,
why?
everybody lost their mind.
Where's he been?
Yeah, because up until that point, it was all stuff we'd already seen before.
Yeah.
And a lot of it felt like, I mean, again, even with, Rebels and stuff like as great as it was, it does still feel like something you've seen before.
Yeah.
Where Mandalorian is just not that at all.
Mandalorian is the prequel, sequel. It is every bit of the expanded universe that we have always wished we had on live screen.
Yeah.
Right? It is everything that we've always wanted. It delivers. it takes what we know and enhances it. Every time there's a stormtrooper on scene, it's stormtrooper dialogue taken from one of the first 3 movies.
Yeah.
Right? Like the blaster sounds are exactly the same.
yes.
The monster sounds are exactly the same. And all
It
of
feels
those
like that world.
little, all
even
of
the
those
missing
little
characters when they're shooting
idiosyncratic
at them.
moments
Yep,
are the,
that's right.
But you know what I loved? The one thing I do love that they always keep tried and true is the stormtroopers always missing. I mean, that's my favorite thing. Everyone asks me, why do you like stormtroopers? Because they're comical. I mean, they're supposed to be this such elite, awesome, army. They can't shoot for shit.
It's just because there's a billion of them, so they're bound to hit something eventually.
And just like the midichlorians, instead of avoiding that, Filoni steers
that
right
was-
into it.
that
With
scene
Bill Burr's
was
character
so great.
Mayfield, when he is said to have been an Imperial sharpshooter, Mando chuckles, and then his response is, "I wasn't a stormtrooper." They steer right into the fact that yes, it's well established in this world. Everybody knows stormtroopers can shoot.
Dude, even that scene in The Mandalorian with the speeder troopers.
Yes.
And they have Grogu in the bag and they're shooting.
just
something
shooting.
Yeah, Jason Sudeikis. And it was so comical and so over the top, but it was funny. Like it was so great.
Yeah, it's so great. And, I mean, in Mandalorian, especially in season 2, they were able to take just so many different things and give them so much more depth and give us the payoff that we've been dying for.
Yeah.
We had payoff. Boba Fett. We Boba Fett fans who have been Boba Fett fans forever and ever and ever were able to get our payoff. The scene where Boba Fett shows up in The Mandalorian and saves
heavier.
Mando. Oh,
Yeah, a little heavier.
a little heavier, a little snug around
Being
the
a
midriff,
Sarlacc, he maybe ate his way out of the Sarlacc.
But still awesome, still cool to see.
And I'm still waiting for them to do, maybe in the book of Boba Fett, they'll even do a flashback of like, how did he get out?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what we're hoping
100%. I
for,
feel like
yeah.
I hope so.
Definitely.
And this is the part of the show where we normally talk about what's fodder. And what's great about Filoni is there is no fodder.
There is none.
But
Right.
we can talk about kind of the future of Star Wars, which has a lot of Filoni's fingerprints on it. And one thing I want to mention before we get to that is that there is another animated TV show called Star Wars Resistance. Filoni was the creator of it and a producer on it. I think it gets a little bit mismaligned. Like I actually think it's pretty enjoyable, but that is, I think, part of the sequel trilogy. I think so.
Yes.
It doesn't have Ahsoka. It doesn't have Rex.
No.
In fact, you never see a Jedi except you see through a communication. You see Kylo Ren. You never see any Force use.
You see Rey.
No, you never see Rey on
she's
it.
not in the show.
No, it's
There's,
only-
there's basically no Force use in it, which is very interesting. But Resistance.
is it?
No.
I thought Rey was on the cover of
No,
No,
so
she's
there-
not in it.
And I think the only one you see is
Kylo
like
Ren.
Poe Dameron is the only one you
Poe
see.
Dameron. No, and they also have Phasma.
Oh yeah, Phasma.
And they have Leia.
Oh, and
So it's well connected to the
Yeah.
sequel trilogy, but it doesn't have a lot of Force users. And Resistance should be talked about separately because it's not part of this Dave Filoni storyline.
no,
But
it's so bad. I didn't enjoy it.
we'll
So-
have you on for when we do that because I want
Yeah.
to defend that. I think it actually saves the sequel trilogy a little bit. But I will talk. But now we
I
can
mean,
talk
it's
about.
directed for a much younger audience. Like,
It is a
like
little
if,
bit more-
If
yeah.
Clone Wars was here,
Yeah.
Rebels is here.
It's like 2 to 3 years
Resistance
younger,
is
yeah.
The Resistance,
here,
I felt like was
it's a
like-
much younger audience.
it was definitely meant for like kids, probably anywhere from like 6 to 9.
6 to 10,
6 to 10,
yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit more slapstick, especially with
Yeah,
like
it's
like
very
those,
childish.
those First Order Stormtroopers are even more slapstick than they are in Clone Wars.
And even like the Clone Wars, it still had this like adult feeling to it. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
the way that characters were killed off, the way that like it still had a little bit more motion to
Rebels
it.
had moments like that
Oh,
that
yeah,
were really
absolutely.
great, where they had the characters killed
The
off.
Resistance wasn't. I love Star Wars and I could sit through just about anything, but I just found myself so bored watching it. And I was just like,
So Resistance is the closest thing we have to not being canon.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, well, let's talk about something, right? Because the main thing that we've talked about is Dave Filoni's ability to take things that we loved, all the little small moments in the movies and legends, ideas that we loved, and to bring them into the canon and really do them justice,
exactly.
right?
Thrawn, he came from the books, and now they bring him into the.
Let's go around the table. What is one thing that's in Legends, maybe a character or an element, maybe a piece of technology, something that's in Legends right now that you
I
would
know what
like
I
to
want.
see Dave Filoni bring
yeah.
into
Matt, you can go
the
first.
canon universe?
10,000% Dash Rendar. Just
Dash
10,000
Rendar
fucking
from
percent.
Shadows of the
Dash Rendar.
Empire?
Yeah,
Which,
like,
which we've seen his
unquestionably.
ship.
Well,
in
yeah,
some
now
scenes, but
technically we have seen the
But
Outrider
his Corellian
in...
cruiser, that
Yeah,
could be
exactly.
anybody.
That's like the whole, the guy driving the truck in Captain America Winter Soldier was the Punisher. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I've heard that one before.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dash Rendar top of the list for me, 100%.
Yeah, he would be a very cool character to bring in.
But to be fair though, before Rebels, it would have been Thrawn, but we already got
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
next on the list is Dash Rendar.
Yeah.
For me, it's 100% Mara Jade.
Yeah.
Mara Jade, for those of you who don't know, she's a love interest for Luke Skywalker. She starts off as being retconned as what's called the Emperor's Hand. So she's very similar to what they end up doing in Rebels, which are the Inquisitors.
Right. Yep.
So she's kind of like a proto-Inquisitor. She's a Force user that is a secret spy that goes right to the Emperor. And what happens in the Thrawn trilogy of books is that following the Emperor's death, since she's kind of an off-the-books agent, much like I almost feel like it's The Departed, when he's undercover and then when his handler dies, nobody knows he's actually a cop.
Yes.
That's what kind of happens to her. Nobody knows she's actually Imperial, so she can't get back with Thrawn. And so it takes her a while, but eventually she does end up getting back together with Thrawn and getting into the whole thing, and she ends up becoming a Jedi. She ends up having Luke's kids. They get married, and in the extended universe, she is killed by a child of of Leia and Han, who turns to the dark side.
Yep.
Jason Solo, who is basically Ben Solo. Like, he's very much a proto Ben Solo.
Right.
And one way that you could tie in the Mandalorian to The Last Jedi more is you could have Mara Jade be at the temple that Luke is bringing, I'm assuming, Grogu to, and that is destroyed by Ben Solo, eventually Kylo Ren, in the sequels. You could have one of the reasons why Luke ended up being this hermit and like that terrible character arc where it doesn't make sense why he's so dark and so brooding.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because we didn't see it, but they'll show us on the show that Mara Jade was killed by Ben Solo.
Yeah, because there's a
So
lot
it
of time
wasn't
that
just that
passes
his kids;
there.
it was that she was killed.
That
So
would be
great.
really cool. That
So
would be
if
a
they could do
really
whole
cool way to
sequence where
explain that.
Mara Jade,
Yeah.
because she could at this point not be with Luke, or so she could be in the Mandalorian or Ahsoka. She could come in with them,
Yep.
and then eventually get with Luke. But she could be
Yeah.
like an antagonist for Mando
Yeah.
in an episode where they're going after the same quarry, and then it becomes a thing. So
Yeah.
that's me.
She was also the original person to have a purple lightsaber.
There you go.
She was. She was
true.
the first to
I
have a
was the
purple
first.
I would
lightsaber.
have loved to see something like in the new trilogies that happened where you saw the Luke and Mara's child. I thought that's where they honestly. I thought when they first announced they're doing a trilogy, I was like, oh shit, we're gonna see Han and Leia's children. We're gonna see Luke's kid, and we're gonna see I thought the rise of the Skywalker. I thought that was all gonna be that lineage coming to fruition. But obviously, I mean, don't get me wrong. I thought Rey was a good character. Kylo Ren still I have issues with. It's kind of like
better.
it got better.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
I loved that he was a perpetual.
Yeah.
He was a child. He was just he got in these
Just like his
temper
grandfather.
tantrums.
Yeah.
Oh yes, oh my god, absolutely.
So yeah, and
I think
Anthony.
for me, I would love to see. So Mara Jade, I absolutely love that idea. It's going to sound a little cheesy and a little stupid. The character that I would love to see is Luke Skywalker, the Luke Skywalker clone. Because, and I'll tell you why. Because
I used, by the way. That's what they
yes,
differentiate him
correct. It had
from
it was,
regular Luke
from
Skywalker.
regular Luke. It has
which
two
works,
U's.
which works in the written form.
Black Series is coming out.
But as you're saying it, Luke.
Luke. But what I think they could do is it could make a really cool story where you have a Luke Skywalker clone, you tie in Mara Jade, maybe there's some confusion, all of a sudden Mara Jade comes in, she thinks Luke is Luke, right, or whatever, the clone is actual Luke, she gets kidnapped, Maybe Snoke is there.
Did Luke
right? Maybe
take-
Snoke, and that's how we're introduced to Snoke is through like he creates a clone of Luke Skywalker, but then really it's not Snoke, it's the Emperor behind the scenes, right? So that's what you're seeing is Snoke with a clone of Luke Skywalker, and Luke Skywalker has to go in, save Mara Jade from the evil clone, and kill Luke Skywalker, the evil clone. I think that could make a really, really cool storyline.
I love that idea. And all of these can happen because as much as we talk about Filoni being a trilogy, yes, and now I'm going to pause to grab a drink.
Pause.
Could I have... So everything we just talked about in terms of the future of the Filoni-verse, it could be in all types of shows because Disney Plus is going full Filoni. There are
Absolutely.
several Star
I'm
Wars.
buying in, maybe.
There are several Star Wars shows that have been announced, but the ones specifically that I think are going to continue on this storyline are the aforementioned Star Wars: The Bad Batch, which we will probably talk about in our May the 4th episode when we're here when they're canning some beer. We have the standalone Ahsoka show, which I hope serves as like a Rebels sequel.
Yep.
We have the Book of Boba Fett, which we hope has some prequel type elements showing how he got to where he is. And of course we have Rangers of the New Republic, which prior to Gina Carano's firing seemed like it would focus around her, but now I'm hoping at least we're going to have Mayfeld. You know, we'll have Bill Burr's character. Like, one thing that the sequel trilogy was really lacking, and we got a little bit of a hint of in The Mandalorian, especially Season 2, is we never see this New Republic. Like, we spend 3 movies and all this time wanting to see the New Republic, and we never see the New Republic. So hopefully the Rangers
gets destroyed
immediately, and it's unclear what happened. It's just one
just
shot.
gone.
You don't know what.
It's just blown out of the
why
sky.
all these planets? It doesn't make any sense. But I would love to see like.
Why are the planets all so close together?
Yeah, it's just one system. They never explain. It's not, and it's not even the real capital. It's a rotating capital. So why is everybody there? And the whole fleet is there. But why is the whole fleet is there? It's like it's as though like the U.S. had all of its ships in Washington D.C. so that it could be destroyed at one time. It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, I don't think it's possible for me to not like the sequels any more than I already do.
So hopefully the Rangers of the New Republic gives us what we wanted, which is, I would love to see, like Hera Syndulla or like a Lando or like a Leia, just like in their prime commanding the New Republic. We get a little bit of that in the Aftermath and Bloodline books, which are all canon because, the new Disney canon. But I would love to seeing what this New Republic is. And it seems to have faults. It's not big enough. It can't deal with crime. But like, I would love to see them doing, something. Like we spent all these movies creating this thing. I'd love to see it in action.
Right? Actually.
And like, one of the things that I want to see is on the right here. Thank you. On the Book of Boba Fett.
Thank you.
I have a very specific way that I'm hoping they tell this story. So like you see it a lot in TV specifically, where they start thank you very much. They start the episode with an event, and then the rest of the episode is a series of miniature stories and whatnot about how they got to that event, but it's constantly flashing back between the present, the past, kind of in between. I would love for the Book of Boba Fett to not just be a story about what happened after you see a Mandalorian, but everything that happened before. I would love for like one episode present, one episode flashback, one episode present, and then it all ties in at the end and like the finale. I would love for them to tell that story that way because I want to see where the fuck Boba Fett has been for the last
I need to saw that. I need to see the Sarlacc.
We have to see him get out.
That's where the title comes in, right? The Book of Boba Fett. It's like his lifetime story, I feel like.
Yeah,
right?
basically,
like we're gonna see
Yes.
all this stuff.
Well, and I think the Mandalorian touched on it a little bit with the sand shark or whatever, what was sand snake or whatever it was called.
Oh, that big from the first.
Which is another great. I'm sorry, real quick. That's another great Filoni thing.
Yeah.
That is the same. The Crate Dragon.
That's
the
in
same,
episode
That's the same
4.
creature you see at the very beginning of the movie.
Yes.
And it's that shot that was in a lot of posters
Of a
where
New Hope,
where
you mean,
C-3PO
And R2
is walking by this like unexplained dinosaur type
It's what
bones.
Obi-Wan. It's the call that Obi-Wan does in the first movie.
And for them to bring back something that's barely a part of episode 4.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
what
so
I didn't realize.
Obi-Wan,
That's the
when
sound.
you first see Obi-Wan,
Yeah.
he's walking like
Yeah.
a
And the
wizard
sand-
in
and
the
the sand people
and
are
he does that
100%.
scream.
I
Yeah.
never, you
Yeah.
know, I never.
That
That's
is a
how
great
deep
dragon
Filoni
yell.
is. That
Yeah,
it
that's
takes
a
him
great
30
dragon
years,
yell.
but he gives us exactly
But
what was in that
He's a
movie.
real twisted son of a bitch, this Dave Filoni.
Well, you know, and also like that he showed like I forgot how it was stated, but like that this thing eats the Sarlacc. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god,
That was so cool. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
amazing.
I'm like,
Yeah,
did,
'cause it was
did this
monstrous.
thing eat the Sarlacc and then the? What did you guys order?
She literally just brought around. Yeah.
Okay, no worries.
Sorry.
You know,
It looks identical.
It looked identical to
The,
what she just
Thank
brought
you.
us. Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah.
and
Somebody will drink
I'm
it.
curious to see if does he fight his way out of the Sarlacc? Does it get eaten by the other creature and then he
Right.
breaks out that way? Like I'm so dying to see that, and I'm
Yeah.
actually really dying
Agreed.
to see. Maybe if even flashback even further to like when he's holding his dad's helmet and he's like,
Yeah, I want. That's how far back
Yeah.
I want
Yes.
to go the
I want to
whole
see Jango
life.
Fett's
Yeah.
head just drop
Right.
out of the bottom of the helmet.
Yeah.
And
and that's such a great way to
and
also
bring that
have
freaking kid back.
you could have great cameos. Also, I'd love to see. I'm sure we're going to see it in Ahsoka, but now that we have that actor back, he could play Rex.
Yeah.
He could play the
Well,
clone.
yeah, yeah.
Like there are so many
Yeah.
options for this. This is maybe how you bring in Freddie Prinze Jr. Have Kanan interacting with Boba Fett back then.
I mean,
Maybe
it
that's a
could
way
be
to bring
really
in
good.
Mara Jade.
Yeah, because
like
they already
having this,
brought in live action Ahsoka. I would
having this,
love-
yeah,
oh,
having this
man.
be the story of his life is a great
Yeah.
chance for a lot of cameos. Just, I mean, there's so much, and there's so much we can do, and based on everything Filoni's done and the success, you know that he now has. I think he's earned the keys to the kingdom. I think what's happened is that
100%.
the success
Yeah.
of The Mandalorian.
Definitely.
I think at first Disney was a little bit shy to really go full.
Yeah,
on
but I
TV
think
show.
after
Now
season
they know.
2, they were
Yeah.
just like, you know what do we do?
Yeah.
and
But they
my
announced like 17 TV shows.
Filoni has reached like the MCU portion of it, where it's like they have our trust at this point. Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
they need to actively lose it at this point because they're doing so well.
And let's talk about that, right? Like once somebody has your trust and really has given you the payoffs, you tolerate a lot more. Like the last episode of season 2 of The Mandalorian has literally my favorite scene ever in all of Star Wars. But one of the things that it also is lazy storytelling. There's a lot of lazy storytelling
It's a
in
lot-
that last
yeah.
episode. It's not as good as the other episodes. It's nowhere near, right? There's so much laziness that's going on in there and bad acting.
But this is a good-
and like
But
it's
there's a
just
lot of heart
but
and, like,
you
in it to
forgive
pay
it.
off. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
forgive it because you're getting the payoff, because they have earned your trust, and you allow them those little like inconsequential things because you're like, you know what? It's going to pay off in the end.
Well, and also
and
because-
man, does it big time.
And
The
because-
scene with Luke Skywalker is one of the most unbelievably cool scenes in any Star Wars anything.
it brought me back
And
to my childhood.
It 100%.
It's what you wanted the sequel
brought-
trilogy
yes.
to be, but it wasn't.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. It literally brought me back to my childhood, as did the Boba Fett scene, and like it was just. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. The only thing that I would have loved even more is if it was Sebastian Stan instead of a.
Did you hear what he said recently?
He said he would
Mark
do it
Hamill.
if
But
Only
Mark
if-
Hamill
only
said
if Mark
it's
Hamill-
okay.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
I feel like Mark Hamill would be fine.
since
Mark
it
Hamill.
wasn't
Hamill's like,
Sebastian
absolutely.
Stan, I'm glad that it was Mark Hamill.
Because I think
Yeah.
Mark Hamill loved doing that cameo so much, even though it was mostly computer. But Mark Hamill
Right.
liked doing that cameo because he was so unhappy with the portrayal of Luke in
Yeah.
the sequel trilogy.
Yep.
And so
it was an abomination.
And Sebastian Stan has a chance to really like save that character, like giving him a backstory. If you add in maybe the Mara Jade or something else, giving it a reason. You know, there is so much opportunity for these sequels, shows, Book of Boba Fett, Rangers of the New Republic, Ahsoka, The Bad Batch, to really fill in everything. And they're already showing that this is going to tie into other stuff because Fennec Shan, who's played by Ming-Na Wen, is in the trailer for Bad Batch. So we already know that a character introduced on The Mandalorian is being retconned into the past of the Bad Batch. Like it's all one big storyline that is just going to only get better and better, and I think only make Star Wars stronger and stronger.
Totally
Much,
agree.
yeah.
And I think it's important to note too. You're talking about the Mandalorian, the last episode. of season 2, which I agree with.
Yeah.
But the reason why you forgive it and why it's okay is because everything leading up to it was so good and so well done. So it's okay, like especially when it's ending like that, to be a little lazy with some of what's going on.
There's also subtle moments that set up some good things, like like there's that moment where it's only women attacking the ship. They're taking the ship, but it's not shot in that corny way that the Avengers did.
Exactly.
Like the Avengers made a really big deal that it was only women. They did basically the same thing in that episode, where it was like very much like a
but
girl
it wasn't
power,
as ham-fisted.
But it wasn't as ham-fisted, and
don't worry, he's got backup.
Like it wasn't corny. It was still just as powerful and as meaningful, but it just made more sense.
Totally.
And then also the setting up, having Mando have the Darksaber is just so
genius, so sick.
Because they kind of mentioned throughout Rebels that like this Darksaber it can be given, but it can't be given. Like when Sabine first has it, her mom Ursa Wren tells her, "Well, you have no right to it since you didn't win it in combat." Then she retroactively wins it in combat, but then she gives it to Bo-Katan.
Right.
And maybe that's the reason, though, why Bo-Katan doesn't take it from him if he hands it off, is because she was the leader of Mandalore. And that's the big mystery for me moving forward in The Mandalorian, is we still don't know what happened to Mandalore. We have this thing about the Night of 1,000 Tears. They talk about how the Mandalorians are an endangered species and hiding. We talk about how the planet seems to have suffered some sort of genocide/destruction. We don't know the specifics. When did it happen? It seemed like it happened in the waning days of the Galactic Civil War. There's some sort of aspect to it where it's a tragedy, because Rebels, one of their main storylines is freeing Mandalore.
Yeah.
And that's also one of the penultimate storylines of the Clone Wars.
I think that's what season 3 is going to be. I think season 3 we're going to go back to Mandalore.
I agree.
And I think that we're going to get a chance to see Sabine Wren.
Well, the one thing
I think we'll see
with the Darksaber was also, I mean, I'm sorry, not Dark. With the Mandalorian, with Jindara's character, is like, no one ever said that, like, it's called the Mandalorian. Like, he is the Mandalorian. Like, I think at the end of all this, and this is just my not reading into anything, but I think at the end of all this, he is going to be the true leader of Mandalore. I think because, why else would you call it the Mandalorian? Like, you're not.
Yeah.
Like, you could have called it some other thing.
And I agree that I totally agree with you that that's a big possibility of where it could go, because it would also fit with the broader story arc that they're building for the character in general, because every action that he takes throughout the majority of the first 2 seasons, he expresses I don't want to do this. He didn't really want to take Grogu. Reluctant hero.
I don't want to take off my helmet.
Yeah, exactly. So but at every turn he breaks that I don't want to do it and ends up doing it for better or worse or whatever. So I agree. I think that would be a brilliant way to end the Mando story, with him finally new Mandalore, whatever you want to call it, coming back and putting the crown on, so to speak.
And it's glossed over a little bit in the show because they don't talk about the past.
Yeah.
But this idea that like Death Watch.
Sausage? Who got sausage?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
We're all family here. Throw that right there. I was curious.
I got you.
Pepperoni burrata.
Oh, right here. Thank you.
I feel like the classic was over here.
Right here. Back that bad boy up.
To rearrange everything.
No, totally cool. No. It's fine. Thank you.
But yes, what they do with... Oh, look at that. So we just got our food here. As if you're watching, you can see. And they have great food
as
here.
we're wrapping up
This
the
is
podcast.
great. And you know what? And a good way to wrap up, too, is...
I'm gonna stuff
Steve,
my
I wanted
face
to ask
out,
you
man.
this.
Yeah.
You got smoked. That's what I'm having now. This is my favorite beer that you guys make. Can you tell us a little bit? It's a smoked beer, but there's something special about it. That I think
so we use a smoked malt, and it's honestly, I personally can tell you that I've had smoked beers before, and I was never a fan of them. I guess maybe my being in beer more and more throughout, I've gotten to craft beer probably about 15 years ago, when it first was starting, it was nothing. It was Dale's Pale Ale was my first big introduction.
That was craft beer at the time.
That was it.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it was still a great
Dale's
beer.
is good, yeah.
I tried smoked beers then, and I was like, what is this? This is disgusting. This is awful. And as I started, my palate started to open. I started drinking more, and I started I love my New England style IPAs, but now I could drink lagers and pilsners and stuff like that forever. The smoked beer was just something that our head brewer Brendan wanted to do, and we were just like, sure, let's try. I think people are liking different varieties now.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, New England style IPAs are fantastic, and I love them, and I want to keep drinking them. But there's only so much of a 9% beer that you can drink throughout your whole entire day.
Yeah, you need some easy drinking beer.
One.
So take me behind the scenes a little bit to the creative process, right? So there's three of you guys, right, that are all brewing together, right? So you guys are sitting together, you're in a room, you're like, hey, I've got a great name for a beer, right?
Yeah.
Let's call it, Mando With No Name, right? And then you start throwing around. Do you ever feel like a mad scientist? You're kind of throwing around chemical or whatever, different ingredients and stuff
Brendan,
like
the
that.
head brewer,
different ways to brew it.
Brendan's
like, hey, let's do
a
a
mad
little bit-
scientist, and he
Okay.
knows a lot about brewing. And I'm new to working in a facility. I was a home brewer with Scott, my friend, who's the owner of A, for several years. We homebrewed a lot. What Brendan's teaching me now is more than I could ever ask for. I'm learning so much now about the industry, how to brew beers, why we're doing it this way, how it's being done, why it's being done. So there's just so much that goes into it, and it's a lot. It's it's a lot to take in, but I'm learning a lot of stuff, and it's awesome. And it's just really cool. And we.
Really sweet.
We'll go through a beer, and we'll be like, well, this is what we want to name it. And, well, what should we name it? And then should it be an IPA? Should it be a Kolsch? Should it be a smoked lager? Should it be a stout? We do have a beer called Give Me Some Sugar, which is a stout, and it's based off of the Evil Dead series, and
Nice.
that's a very different can art.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
that's a different artist. Yeah. That's
was that your first beer that doesn't have the door in the shadow?
Yes,
concept?
that was our first
Right.
beer that didn't have it. And our other beer is also our flagship, the What If, which is our flagship IPA. So that's another beer that doesn't have the typical art. It just has the What If and a question mark on it.
And the Give Me Some Sugar you actually put in. I actually have it at home. That you make peanut brittle, or this candy company made peanut brittle out of it. It's
That's
great.
awesome.
Old Monmouth Candy in Freehold, New Jersey. Steve is his name, the gentleman.
I know that place.
Yeah. So it's been around forever.
Yeah.
He reached out to us and said, "Hey, we'd love to make a peanut brittle," and he's like, "Send us some of your beer," and we were glad to do it.
That's so
it's
cool.
fun. I think working with other local businesses is a great thing for the community.
Absolutely.
It's just something that we're definitely into, and we love doing things like that.
What's your favorite beer on the menu?
Ooh, tough, because I will say the Royal Rug, which is a Pilsner. It's a slow pour or a regular pour. I mean, the Kolsch, which we just brewed, which is Business is a Boomin', which is a delicious beer also.
Really good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
IPAs and pales are probably leaning towards Holy Schmoly, which is a pale ale, and it's just, it's an easy drinking beer. But we got a lot of new beers coming out, and I'm really excited to showcase them and show you guys what different beers we're gonna have.
Well, we'll be back at least May 4th.
Yeah,
and then
we'll
other
definitely be
times.
back at least by May 4th.
Yeah.
We'll be back, I'm sure, in between then. But yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for sitting down with us today. Thank you for joining us for the podcast.
I told my wife, I was like, I'm so excited to sit down and talk about Star Wars. I mean, I talk Star Wars, not often, but when I can, to people and people who want to listen to me when I talk Star Wars. So to be able to sit down and talk Star Wars with people who enjoy it as much as I do, it's fulfilling for me, because everyone's nerdy in their own things, and I'm super nerdy into Star Wars, and my friends are into Star Wars, but they're not nerdy like I am.
Yeah.
They don't collect I have. This is one of probably 10 or 15 Star Wars glasses that I have.
That's
I collect
awesome.
Star Wars glasses. I collect helmets. I collect toys.
I have to say, did you ever collect the collectible card game, the Star Wars Decipher collectible
I
card
didn't.
game?
I never played the game, but for some reason I just felt like I had to collect the cards.
So
I have all these cards.
I
I've
should.
never played
I
it.
feel
Wait,
like
you do? You have a bunch?
I have a bunch of them.
Okay.
I've never played the game though.
You and I are going to talk, because I love that
Oh,
game.
shit.
I have an entire collection, and I spent a portion of 2020 locked in my house I took this mess of probably 2,000 Star Wars cards.
2,000?
I organized
All right,
them.
you have a slightly larger deck than I do.
I organized them. I cataloged them. I have an entire inventory of what I have.
Now,
what I
is
don't.
that game canon?
I mean, absolutely. Well, because it's the original trilogy. But the great thing about that game is what's great about Dave Filoni. You get a chance to see all of the smallest characters, and it has like a little blurb right at the top. It gives you backstory on each different character, and you feel like you can create these different
Like the action
stories.
figures, it's your own world.
With literally the Star Wars customizable card game, the Decipher customizable card game was the reason. That's the reason I am a Star Wars fan. Like, I got into Star Wars through playing that game.
That's so crazy.
I remembered watching Star Wars when I was a
96,
kid.
97, I think,
95.
right? It was
95.
Yeah, it was right around the time when they were gearing up for the re-release.
Right, for the re-release. And for the special edition, then they did an entire set for the special edition.
We bought on VHS.
Yeah, amazing.
Well, this has been a great episode. Thank you so much,
dude, guys,
for
thank you
having us
coming.
here and alt ending.
Our
And
pleasure, and I really, honestly, seriously, I will. Anytime you guys have an extra spot to come on, I'm down.
we'll have you
We
on.
always
Steve,
have an
thank you
extra
very
spot,
much.
Steve.
Yeah.
so we are gonna both on the episode notes and on our Instagram and Twitter pages, we'll mention alt ending so everybody knows how to get here.
Absolutely.
But until we're here again for May 4th, my name is Ed,
I'm Matt.
And I'm Anthony.
I'm Steve.
and this is Canon Fodder.
Nice. That was awesome. Thank you, guys.
That was so great, man. Thanks for joining.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining
it was,
us.
Dude, what is it?